Hello, I'm Martin Quigley, Executive Director here at the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum and Botanic Garden. And today we're going to talk about the effect of weather on plants. And of course, normally we're talking about heat and drought, which are the biggest plant damagers normally here on the Central Coast. But this year we've had an unprecedented, crazy amount of rain, non-stop storms for days on end, and flooding locally and regionally. So how does this affect your garden? What has happened to your plants? You might have noticed some mushy parts. You might have noticed some blackened parts. Maybe your plants are sitting in deep puddles of water. Imagine that this is your driveway edge or a foundation planting, and you notice that these succulents have lost most of their leaves. The remaining leaves are quite damaged, and they just fall off at the touch of a finger. These are going to die unless you save them. And how do you save them? Carefully pull them up without breaking anything. See that? That would be rot if we left it in the ground. So this plant would die unless you dry it out, leave it there for a week or two or three, wait till the rains are over, and then simply replant them. And you can save almost any of these succulents if they haven't rotted too much. Let me show you a few plants that could be covered to save them from the effects of a near frost or a frost experience. Some people do go running out with sheets and cover everything, but the plants you really need to be worried about are the ones that come from subtropical areas or the ones that have big, flat, thin leaves, because they're the ones most likely to suffer from cold damage. And if we swing around here, we can watch, look at that tree. That is a combination of wind and cold that ripped that canopy apart. This is another cordyline, the same one we just saw with the wind damage. This is a healthy example of a young plant. These can be used as house plants, but also outdoor plants. But because they have these broad leaves, like banana leaves, you've seen them all tattered, they easily shred in high winds, so they need to be protected from that. And so you can tie them up, and if you have, just to keep the wind damage to a minimum, the other thing you can do again is to, if they're in pots, is to lay them down before the wind knocks them over. Many things that have been frozen will die at the tips, but the ground didn't freeze, so the roots might still be alive. In that case, you can rescue your plant by sacrificing the upper growth, which is damaged or already frozen, and cut down to healthy tissue, and they will grow back from that. This protea is a good example of a very, very tough plant. Can take any amount of heat, any amount of drought, months, years without water, but severe cold will kill it. But the biggest killer of these plants is the lack of drainage. If you're planting proteas, they have to have either good draining soil and or be planted on a slope where the water will not sit. So drainage, very important. You can amend your soil. You can use a coarse, well-draining mix like this, fine pumice or volcanic rock mixed with very, very light soil, well draining. But if you have big puddles of standing water in your garden, and it happens every time it rains, then you need to channel some drainage. You can do French drains, which are perforated pipe below the surface, whether it's lawn or garden, and it will collect the water and carry it away. Or you can dig a small swale. It doesn't have to be the Panama Canal. You can just dig a small swale so that the water does not accumulate around your woody plants. That's if it happens every year. Anomalous storms like we have this year, there's no way to prevent puddling in a time like that, especially during the rainfall itself. But I wouldn't worry too much because this doesn't happen that often. Very few things will actually drown as a result of the storms we've had this winter, but it's possible. It is possible. If you did sustain some plant loss this winter, then don't worry about it. You can always replace plants, and it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to get new plants in your garden. Some of these Mediterranean plants can withstand the most violent weather and still come through looking like this one. It just stopped raining yesterday, and this didn't care about the hail, it didn't care about the temperature. It just looks like spring flowers all the way around. So just remember, if you had damage in your garden, you can save many of your plants. Most of them, particularly succulents, can be pulled out of the ground. Potted plants can be laid on their side until the water drains out to prevent further wind damage. And most plants can recover unless they've been truly destroyed. If they are destroyed, there are so many more plant choices to explore. This is Martin Quigley. Thanks so much for joining me today and looking at what we have to offer.